It's this feeling as if, oh, I can't get out of this. There's no way out. But hello, Taurus. Welcome to your October Soul session. I am Marlo. If you are new, my friend, and if you're not familiar with what my soul sessions are, they are your spirituality as well as personal development readings in which we look at the energies that you all may encounter for a given month for the sole purpose of giving you clarity, insight, and guidance and all that good stuff and whatnot or whatever. Happy October, my Taurian friend. So anywho, jumping into you guys' cards, the first card that we have out is the Five of Cups in the reverse. So what this says to me, my wonderful Taurians, I don't know if you guys can see it. Is my autofocus being nice today? It is. Okay, don't get too close now. All right. So what it's looking like to me is coming out of September and into October. I would say in the month of September, and I'm going to say the whole month because I know numerologically, because I can never say that word right. The month of September for a lot of people was not a good month. Of course, if you guys watched the soul sessions last month, it was this general theme of the month kind of starting out copacetic and then there being something kind of dark in nature that kind of popped up, but it's more or less like shadow aspects that were popping up for everyone to deal with once and for all, to kind of lighten the load as everyone is going into a new karmic cycle moving forward, especially with Saturn going direct on the 10th of this month, my friends. But with this in particular, it feels like depression. Let's just get that out there. It feels like depression or some sense of grief and loss. As many of you may know, in the last few months, many of us have endured and are still enduring in the aftermath of numerous natural disasters, be it hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, flooding, and for some, volcanoes. I myself and many in New Orleans and its surrounding areas are still rebuilding from Hurricane Ida. So I can say from experience that recovering from losses of this caliber aren't easy. However, neglecting your mental health during a time such as this is. And that's why on October 10th, for World Mental Health Day, and the entire month of October, I'm allying with BetterHelp and WKYS FM to raise awareness of mental health issues around the world. So whether you're a survivor of one of the recent disasters, just need someone to talk to, or you're ready to start your mental health journey, I've partnered with BetterHelp to assist you in making this month the month you make your mental health a priority. If you haven't heard of them, BetterHelp is an online resource in which you can find your very own friendly local neighborhood therapist, no matter where you are in the world. You sign up, and within 24 hours, they match you with a licensed therapist that's right for you. And you can talk to your counselor every week via phone or video chat, and you can even text them between sessions. So if you, my beautiful human friend, or someone you know, has been considering therapy, get started today with BetterHelp. The link to sign up is in the description box below this video. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this message. You know I love your face. Now, let's get back to your soul session. Woo! Now, with it being in the reverse, it's exacerbated, if that makes sense. So it's a sense of those emotions being present. It's feeling that way, but it's more or less going into the depths and into the deep to give you something. Okay, hello, what is happening in America? That turned backwards, we'll take that. To give you something that's a little more solution focused in reference to this energy I'm picking up on that you guys are coming into October with, Taurus. It's very much intricately related to something in the past, and something in the past, like some sort of loss or great disappointment, some sense of failure, even if that's making sense. So it's something or someone that that Taurus has lost, whether that's, you know, someone passing away, or it's just some sort of trauma that you've been through in your life. And how this particular event that you guys went through has affected you in a way that it cuts very deep. So more or less, and this is just what I'm picking up intuitively because I'm seeing a whole thing, how how I'm seeing it, the vision I'm seeing is like how I say it cuts deep. It's almost, oh, wow, I can actually say something from a channeled message I got from Spirit back in 2010. It's hidden explanations of guilt. I got that in a channeled message years ago, and I did not know what that word was. And when I looked it up, it's like a botany word, right? And it's when you take like cells from one plant, and mind you, all of this is relevant to my point here. You take cells from one plant and you implant them into another, and it alters the DNA of the other plant, which makes it something entirely different. So those hidden explanations of guilt would be what I mean when I say that this cuts deep, meaning there was some wound or loss that Taurus went through in the past, right? And I'm talking distant past, right? And it's almost as if someone cut Taurus deeply, right? And implanted a sense of shame or guilt into Taurus, right? So the vision I'm seeing is like of a person and them being kind of cut like this, you know, like the Fruit Ninja game. It's like them being cut like that. And this particular seed of discord being implanted somewhere around like I guess you would say it's between your sacral chakra and your solar plexus. So it's like around in like, you know, your belly button area. So it's this particular seed of discord being implanted there, you know, Taurus being proverbially sewn up, and there's a person that's built on top of that. So what I feel came up for you guys in September is that thing that was implanted in you long ago. So it's a seed of discord that has caused Taurus to have a sense of shame about themselves or a distorted perspective of themselves or something of the sort. But this came from someone outside of you. So it's something someone else did to you that implanted this thing into you. You've been harboring it for this time. It's been sprouting kind of like fruit, which, you know, influences. I love how all of this is coming from this one card. It's wonderful. But it's this thing sprouted fruit. The fruit is the fruit of your mind. So your perspective, how it is that you're encountering life, how you're, you know, engaging with other people, your self-perception, all of these things, right? And what happened in September is all of these emotions was almost like emotionally vomiting, if you will, all of this stuff that's been implanted deep within you, like in your being for, you know, a very, very long time. So I feel for the month of September for you guys, it was a very just kind of dark, sad, kind of depressing time for you all. The next card that we have is, well, hello. We have the Six of Cups in the reverse. So that pretty much explains what it is that I was just saying, that it's something from your past. So whatever this is, for you specifically, this is something from the distant past. But the whole purpose of what we're coming into the month of October with is, I feel a lot of you maybe in a place where, how can I say this? You would be in a place where, like me talking about this past tense, and it's like, oh yes, in September you were, you know, feeling this way, but suddenly in October you're fine. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel it that way. I feel that this is like residual energy. And mind you, on the 26th of September, we went into Mercury retrograde, right? And it's retrograde in Libra. So a great deal of the stuff that we're dealing with in this retrograde, because of course it's us going backwards in order to go forwards, but it has a lot to do with relationships, but not just romantic. This is relationship with yourself, with friends, family, you know, romantic partners and things of the sort. But I feel my Taurus is coming into October. This is something that you guys are still grappling with. It's an energy that's still kind of with you. And I feel even more so, it's something where there's a lack, and I don't want to necessarily say that for everyone, but the first impression I get is that there's a lack thereof of clarity as to what this is. So more or less, with me kind of saying my whole little spiel that I picked up intuitively with this, seed of discord implanted within Taurus, I don't necessarily feel that you guys would know that that's the source of it. The only thing that you would really know is that the month of September, you've been really sad and not really sure why that is in particular, But again, the reason why this stuff is coming up, because it's something with this Ace of Swords, which is you guys' next card. And after that, we have the Empress, which is wonderful. So with this Ace of Swords, this is all about a mental breakthrough that you guys are intended to have this month, right? But I feel this mental breakthrough is getting the opportunity for these things to come to the surface, for you to confront it, for you to shift your perspective of it. Because I always say with the Ace of Swords, there's a light side of the sword and there's a dark side of the sword, right? And the dark side of the sword is like the negative perspective of our minds, right? So our minds being like the abuser in our life, in other words, as opposed to it being a tool or a resource that we can use to navigate life. And I feel coming into October, you guys have more or less felt at the will of your own mind, because it has to do with a lot of, negative thinking, your perspective on yourself, your perspective on life, where it is that you are, or even the thought of like, why did this happen to me? Like, or the things that you went through, why did these things happen to me? Why did I have to lose this person? What have you? But the whole purpose for these things coming up is for them to be cut off, so that one can switch to the lighter side of the sword. So it's a need for a shift and a perspective this month. And I feel how you guys can help this along, because this feels very much like an energetic shift, if you will. How you guys help this along, of course, like, I always say, go ahead and find you a great, friendly, local neighborhood therapist. You know what I'm saying? On the 10th of this month, it is World Mental Health Day. So I'm advocating this month for everyone to get a therapist, because I say getting a therapist is literally the equivalent of a cheat code, because trying to work out things like this, especially if this is something that is very, past tense, that's been with you for so long, it's kind of difficult, because as they say, with the sword of truth, that of which is the Ace of Swords, the sword of truth can cut marrow from bone, right? And marrow and bone are pretty darn close. But I feel it's the equivalent of this particular proverbial seed of discord that's within you all, to where it's as close as marrow to bone, to where it's difficult for Taurus to even remember. So this would feel like childhood trauma to me, to be quite honest. Like if I were to put a name on it, this would feel like childhood trauma, or the loss of a parent while you were very young, because it's having existed this particular way for so long that one does not have a recollection of like an optimal state of functioning, if that makes sense. So to give an example of what it is that I'm saying here, and also with this Empress, I'm seeing for some of you, when it's speaking to a loss, it could be the loss of a mother. And it doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily feel recent past. If I were to be blatantly honest, with this energy, it would be possible that recent past, that there's a person who lost a mom or like a mother figure, right? But I really feel that this is, I feel this is a loss that happened some time ago, But if I were to give an example of what I mean by not having a recollection, this would be like someone who had an amazing childhood, right? Super great childhood, super great teenage years, great parents, right? And they end up getting married, and they marry someone that's like a narcissist, right? And they go through narcissistic abuse for, 7 years, they get divorced, right? Remembering their optimal state of functioning would be prior to getting into that marriage. Like remembering life before you married this person, remembering teenage years, your childhood, and remembering, oh, this is who I used to be. And this is a stark contrast for who it is I became in this particular partnership, right? What it is I'm picking up on for my Taurus people, whether this is a loss of a parental figure or this is some sort of trauma that you guys went through, this thing has been with you for so long that there is no recollection. So this is like something traumatic happening at 5, and now you're an adult and there is no going back to 4 before the trauma happened to try to remember who was I at 4 years old? You know what I mean? Because it's a stark difference from you as an adult. So there's no kind of frame of reference. So when it comes to trying to see if one's perspective is skewed, it would be difficult to tell. It's a lot like when people ask me like, well, what does a healthy relationship look like? Right? And it's like people ask that question. That's not a dumb question. It's not a silly question because majority of people have no clue what that even looks like. We have a concept of what we want in a relationship. We know what we've experienced, but very few people know what the true like standard healthy, mental health aligned definition is of a healthy relationship, So I feel it's the same kind of standard with my Taurians. I know that that's very wordy, Taurus, but I hope that that makes sense. But anywho, moving forward with this Ace of Swords and the Empress, this is all about you guys having a mental breakthrough this month so that you can sit in your position of power. Because I feel how you guys have been showing up is almost like a lesser version of yourself, if that's making sense. So with the Empress, this is more or less being a creative genius is the word I just heard. Let's go with that. Being a creative genius, being abundant, your life being fruitful in every aspect, like holistically, not just financially, but, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? And being able to more or less be like a lighthouse or a testament to other people. It's the mastery of divine feminine energy. This is so weird. This is always weird when that happens. When cards come out sideways, this is a new phenomenon for me. This is something that's been happening since like last month or so. But we have the Two of Swords and it came out sideways. So I'm going to leave it sideways because I'm about that life. As I look at it, both of these interpretations are relevant. So here's the dealio. This Two of Swords, my wonderful Taurians, is speaking to a state of free will, my friends. So here's the thing. This is what you're coming into the month with, right? It's this sadness, this depression that's very much intricately related to the past. It's being very much stuck in the past. It's almost like being like a record that's stuck on repeat or skipping, because records don't repeat, but CDs do that. Whatever. But it's like a record that's skipping. So it's more or less, and this is so strange, Taurus, like I'm pulling these cards, but I can't ignore that with each card I'm looking at, it's like I'm getting a whole intuitive message for each of these things that's really going way deeper than these cards right now. Maybe somebody really, really need this message. But it's more or less, it's like this record that is like skipping, and how I'm seeing it is like, if we go back to the first vision I saw of this thing being implanted into Taurus, right? It's almost like at that time in your life is when your record started to skip, right? So say hypothetically, if we say this happened at, 10, right? So 10 years old, this thing happens, right? This thing is implanted into you, your record starts to skip. And now you fast forward to like, 40, right? And your record is skipping all the way till 40. So it's, even though, physically you've grown in age, right? It's like inside of you, one has never really gotten past that point, So it's like for the last 30 years, this proverbial record has been skipping. And it's the same like part of the song that's been playing over and over and over and over again. Now, you'd have to listen to what I'm saying with your spiritual ears and not your human ears, because that's a metaphor or a parable, if you will, for a deeper process that happened here. So 10 years old, once traumatized. This hypothetical person that we're speaking about is 40 years old now, right? 30 years have happened, but one is still stuck at what happened at 10, even though they're 40. So you have grown, you have matured, you have learned things, you have gone to college, got educated, got married, got divorced, had some babies, but inside of you, one has still been skipping on the same song since they were 10, right? So it's not being able to develop past that point. So to make this make sense, right? It's more or less this thing that's implanted, and I'm speaking proverbially here, this particular thing that's implanted into you, whatever your perspective was at that moment of this thing happening, right? Like that wound, that is through the same eyes that you're seeing things now. And why it is that a lot of things that you've experienced up to this point may be seemingly repetitive, meeting the same people in a different body, friends stabbing you in the back in the same particular way. Every single job you're at, it's always a boss that treats you this particular way. It's like this consistent, why does this always happen to me type of deal, right? Now, if I were to get even deeper with this of the perspective that we're getting from this Two of Swords, because this is more or less like a crossroads here and where your free will comes in, because it would be a choice you can make to deviate from this, right? When a person doesn't know that at 10, right, what they experience caused their record to skip, and that they've been seeing the world through that same perspective, you see them as two totally different things. And now it seems like a message life is trying to send to you. Like, wow, I lost my parent at 10 years old, or this, traumatizing thing happened to me at 10 years old. And all my life, all people do is just stab me in the back and cheat on me, lie to me, betray me, they never promote me, always overlook me. And it seems like that particular thing was the start of a series of unfortunate events, but that's the perspective shift that comes this month, right? The perspective shift that comes this month is the realization that it's not just one horrible thing after the other. It's the fact that this particular thing did a sense of damage to you from another person. So it's something someone else did to Taurus that shifted the way that Taurus saw themselves, right? And when Taurus changed the way they saw themselves at this particular time, hypothetically 10 years old, right? That's when Taurus switched from the light side of the sword to the dark side of the sword. But it's been 30 years, hypothetically, that Taurus has been living through the dark side of the sword, right? So Taurus has no idea or recollection anymore of what the light side of the sword even is, or if it even exists. Taurus just knows this to be life, right? Now, there's something that happens this month, and it can come one of a couple of ways, because like I talked to you guys about therapy, those of you who are already in therapy, shout out to you, right? Those of you who are already in therapy, this can be one of those dope breakthroughs that you have in therapy, right? To where you've been seeing a therapist for some time for this particular thing, and suddenly this month it clicks and you're like, oh my goodness. And you start to see a lot of the things that it is that I said before. For others of you, this could just come as a flash, as a dream. It could be listening to this reading to where you're like, wait a minute, like, is that a thing? And it becomes something you start a journey of processing. But whatever the case, towards the midpoint of this month, which I think is very interesting, because coming to the midpoint of the month, we're talking like around like 10th through the 16th midpoint of the month. On the 10th is aside from it being World Mental Health Day, on the 10th is when Saturn goes direct. And that's why there's this epic wrap up of a lot of karmic contracts people have been in. So if we were to make this linear, if we look back at September, everyone had like a purge vomit last month, where it's some stuff we've been carrying with us, excess baggage that came to the surface, right? A lot of us are bringing that into this particular month, Taurus specifically, because this is when we're nipping it in the bud. We can see it. We're looking at the shadow. Hey, you're here. We're working through this. We're cutting that out so that we're able to move forward without any excess baggage, right? But this is all about it being a solo job with this Two of Swords, right? Because even those of you who are in therapy also know that the work that's done in therapy isn't the therapist, it's you doing the work. You know what I'm saying? So with this Two of Swords, it's about, we have two options. We can choose to be willingly blind, to say, this isn't me, this isn't happening. Yeah, that did happen. That's not what it is. My issue right now is money, or the fact that I want to be married, or whatever, you know, the case may be. This has nothing to do with that. So we can choose willful blindness, right? Or we can choose to really look within ourselves and to do some self-reflection and to see how it is that something that we went through in the past could have altered one's self-perspective. But the whole purpose of why it is that this is happening is because there's a disconnect between one's heart space and their mental space, right? So looking at this in the sense of your heart space being the seat of your soul, that of which where spirit communes, your inner sanctum, if you will, right? And your mind being a tool that is designed to be in service to the heart space, aka higher self, right? And it's being in this perspective. Dark side of the sword is when the mind thinks it's the master. Osho has a whole thing on it. You can totally Google it, but of like, why is the mind always running like crazy when the heart wants to say something, is a question, and Osho answers it beautifully. But this is taking this shift from one having vacated into their mental space and escaping their heart space, right? Because it's survival. You know what I mean? It's like trauma response, if that makes sense. The next card that we have is the Two of Pentacles in the reverse. So we're speaking to a little bit of indecision. And again, this is also still speaking to being chained to the past. It's like, I feel towards the midpoint of the month, this is how this is kind of going to wrap up for you all, Taurus, is in the midpoint of the month, Saturn goes direct, with, which means that's the karmic cycle period at the end of the sentence, right? Meaning that this energy isn't hovering over you anymore because cycle is done, right? Now we can continue to perpetuate an energy that we've been operating under moving forward if we choose to, right? And then Mercury goes direct on the 18th. So literally Saturn goes direct 8 days later is when Mercury goes direct, right? So there could be residual energy here because of that whole little transit period that's going on. But I feel it more as indecisiveness at the midpoint of the month, because it's like having this breakthrough at therapy, or getting this idea, or listening to this reading, having a dream about something, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. And then it's kind of backstepping, like, nah, that really can't be, you know, it can't be that, like, that can't really be it. So it's almost like this kind of ambivalence. I'm still not really concerned about that though, Taurus. And the reason for that is it is not is, right? Y'all know I always talk about the is not is paradigm. So the whole key is here, it's the is comes in as in truth and clarity, right? This is who you've become, the byproduct of what you've experienced. This is who you really are, right? There's some work that can be done with that, you know what I mean? Or you deciding to go to therapy and then feeling a little better, and it's like, oh, I don't need to be going to see no therapist, like I'm fine, right? Or maybe you're in therapy and you're like, oh, I'm good, I don't need therapy no more, like I'm fine, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the case. But it's having this experience and getting into this ambivalence, the midpoint of the month, whether that's doubting the path that you were on, or not really feeling that you can move past what it is that you were doing before, but this is the is not that manifests before the is. So this is like the void that comes in, right? So it's almost like a little bit of darkness that comes in a sense, or self-doubt or ambivalence or what have you, that manifests before the is, you know? And I always say that whenever the is not happens, it's a testament that the is on its way. So it's something that you would want to embrace. I don't know how these read. See, Aries reading was like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Like, everything's dope for you. Congratulations. But, but then again, of course, I did say this. I did Libra prior to Aries. And then I did Aries, and then I did Taurus, because I'm doing it on who had the highest views last month. And I told Libra in their reading that their reading reminded me of the Taurus reading from September. And I was talking about how you guys were Venetian brethren and sisterin. And I'm looking at the Empress card being here. And I literally think that's kind of like why this energy is reminding me of Libra, because Libra's reading was very like winded. I was getting messages all about the wazoo, child, you know, and you guys feel the same way. So I don't know what the heck Venus is doing right now. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but Libra's reading was more intuitive than anything. What is this? The 8 of Swords. Yep, that's what I felt, my friend. It's feeling almost as if you're in a mental prison, but here's the whole key here. And I'm gonna turn this upside down. Upside down. Okay, I'm gonna stop. With this is the whole energy that I was feeling. It's almost being like in a mental prison of not knowing how to move forward, or feeling stuck, or feeling like you can't. Like one is being backed into a corner, but the whole key is that's all it's perceptive. I said something very similar to Aries for those of you who are cuspers or have that in your chart, of because 8 of Swords energy came up in theirs too. But it's this feeling as if, oh, I can't get out of this. There's no way out, but there is. It's the perspective. So this still goes back to the mind, right? If one is a pessimist, like if we look at it like pessimism, optimism, like if a person is a pessimist and you always see worst case scenario, or you always see glass half empty, then when you're in a situation such as this, it's like, oh, I can't change. This isn't going to get better. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't change the past. Like, I am who I am. Like, how am I ever going to get over that? Like, whatever the case that one is feeling. So it's fear that is speaking there, right? And this is going to sound kind of crazy. You know how people say that there's a fear of success, right? It feels similar to that. And it's like, you think, why the heck would somebody be afraid of being successful? It's not the success aspect. It's the fear of the unknown. And it's the fear of getting something only to have to wait for the other shoe to drop and to lose it. That is really what's speaking there. You know what I'm saying? But if I stick with what it is that I know, what's comfortable, I don't have to worry about succeeding for a little while and then failing type of deal, you know? So I feel with this midpoint of the month, even though this energy is being removed from Taurus energetically, the prison that exists is only in one's mind. And the 8 of Swords, of course, again, speaks to there being a need to reattune with one's heart space, which is what I was saying with this 2 of Swords here, right? It's vacating to the mind. There's certain things or situations we find ourselves in that logic cannot solve, because the whole purpose of what Taurus is going through is the disconnect from the heart space happened once upon a time, right? With whatever this thing is that you guys went through. It was vacating to the mind, but the mind without the heart is off kilter and unbalanced, hence dark side. So the way that one's perspective has been of life is by default half empty. In order for us to get back to the light side of the sword, we need the missing ingredient, that of which would be the divine feminine, aka the Empress card, right? Aka the heart space, inner sanctum, right? And that's the only way we can balance that out in order for one to get a clear perspective of what they're really dealing with. However, the 8 of Swords is another confirmation of this transformation, if you will, needing to take place, or this realignment or reattunement, if you will. And I feel that with this Two of Swords in the reverse or sideways, right? And this Two of Pentacles in the reverse, I feel this is an energy of ambivalence that Taurus often finds themselves in, right? It's either saying F no, sticking your heels in and not being with the shits, you know what I'm saying? Or it's feeling consistently stuck in a rut, not knowing how to get out, you know what I'm saying? Or feeling that you're at the will of other people's decisions. And this is all about you guys stepping into your power to know that you don't ever have to be at the will of life. Life is at the will of you. But the only reason why one ever felt that way, right, is because they vacated their heart space. So there's a lack thereof of being this permeable filter for the divine, right? So there's a lot of situations where you can't logically think of something and you really need a message from spirit, right? To give you clarity, to give you insight on how to move forward. But if one has cut off their emotional space, it's impossible to do so. You know what I'm saying? The messages that you receive are pretty much hit or miss, if that's making sense. So don't be deterred by this, because like I said, it is not before the is, right? So it's being in this space to where you get kind of fearful. I don't know, this might not be a good idea. Maybe I should just go back. Like, you know, it's kind of second guessing yourself. But, and I said this to another sign too, I think it was an Aries extended, but I was saying, do it afraid, like do it scared is what the message was. It's like, even if this kind of rises up, it's like, do it afraid, do it scared, if that's making sense. Looky there. Then we have the Three of Wands, child. I don't even know how long this reading is. Jesus. We have the Three of Wands. So this is all about leaving that ambivalence behind. Taurus, this is a good thing. And focusing on the future, and not focusing on the future in the sense of escapism, but it's like a new horizon. It's like, I literally feel for you guys, you're going to be leaving all of this behind. And the thing that you'd be leaving behind is this feeling and sensation right here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? I think you can. A little bit. My camera's starting to love me again. Mercury retrograde makes my camera work. Irony. Anywho. But the thing that you guys would be leaving behind would be this perspective right here, the Six of Wands in the reverse. It's like this feeling of failure, not enough, you know? And notice, I don't know if you can see it, not really, but these three cards here, these are diagonal from each other. The Five of Cups, the Two of Swords in the reverse, and the Six of Wands. So let's say presently in your life, hypothetically, the main tenet that one feels is not good enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, feeling like a failure, no matter what I do, it never works, like I'm always passed over. If that's a feeling that you guys have felt, or for some time, most of your life type of deal, you know what I'm saying? And feeling as if you can't move forward type of deal, this is letting you know that this is where that comes from. It's like when I talked about that seed of discord, you know, the hidden explantations of guilt, if I'm saying that word properly, you know, when this thing was implanted into Taurus's being, dark side of the sword happened, disconnect from the heart space happened. The byproduct of that is this feeling of never enough, right? Now, when we get back to this whole free will thing that I was talking about with this Two of Swords, with it coming out sideways, this is really the choice that you have, and it can show you a little bit of how it is that things have often played out. So this being in the center of your spread, right? The one that was sideways, right? So this is speaking to dark side of the sword. This is the choice that's always been made. The choice that's always been made is to move to a different place, get a new job, get new friends, break up with this person, like start over fresh, new year, new me, you know, doing stuff like that. But despite the external world changing, the inner world has not. The heart space is still unplugged from the mental space, right? The perspective is still the same. The record is still skipping. So despite what it is that changes on the external, you lose weight, you gain weight, get your boobs done, get your nose done, get you a weave, get you a nice little lace front, cut all your hair off, you get in a relationship, you break up, regardless, like you buy a house, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you get 7 degrees, whatever the case, anything that's done in the external world, you move 30 years forward, hypothetically, right? But remember, at 10 is when that record started to skip. The record is still skipping. So despite what it is that has shifted and changed in the external world, the internal world is still at that wound at hypothetically 10 years old, right? So the way that things typically have worked out up to this point is because one is in a mental prison and disconnected from their heart space, living in their head. The only recycled information that you're getting is the perspective you have in your head. No matter how often you move forward and you cut people off, leave things behind, the same history always repeats itself. You feel what I'm saying? Which takes us back to the main thing this month. If we looked at this sideways, right? Because that gives us our 2 narratives. We know dark side. The key this month is picking light side of the sword, reconnecting heart space to mental space, right? So that one can finally deal with this once and for all. So this can become this. That's what the whole point of this month is, my Taurian friends. Now, of course, one can ask, how the hell am I supposed to do that? Right? And this is why I be telling y'all, man, therapy is the cheat code. Listen to your friend. That's the therapist, okay? It is the cheat code. You do not have to be in therapy for like 10 years or some stuff like that. I mean, unless you want to, but I ain't gonna let you do that. My clients already know. Once you process your stuff, I will put you out in a minute. A great deal of them can vouch for that, So it's the cheat code, dude, because dealing with stuff like this, and I would never leave a person hanging with that. Dealing with stuff like this is not something that you can just get a journal and journal it out. You can't self-care day this away. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm just going to go running. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to rub my crystals like, ooh, here goes my amethyst. Let me, rub this out of my, system. Let me Reiki it away. No, this is not one of those things that works like that. Like, this is wholeheartedly, and I know every single Taurus is not going to resonate with this. I am so sorry if this is not yours this month, my friend. However, every single Taurus isn't going to resonate with this, but I know for sure there is no doubt in my mind that I am talking to a very specific group of people. And I'm telling you wholeheartedly, dealing with something to this caliber, this is not something that any pop culture, mental health fad, throw a couple of tarot cards type of thing is going to just solve. There's no form of laws of attraction, I speak it to existence, therefore I am type of thing that's just going to switch this around. This is something that really needs to be confronted, worked through, and processed. And it's something that you can do with a therapist because it's the cheat code. Instead of continuing to suffer, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to continuing to suffer in silence, and me being a double Taurus here who was traumatized AF back in the day, who went to therapy and realized in therapy I wanted to be a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can say from experience, and I tried it that way. Me having spiritual gifts and being a spiritual person, I was like, I don't need no therapist. I'm just gonna, attune with spirit and align and, wear my tourmaline and things of the sort, you know what I'm saying? Light some candles, turn around 3 times, releasing it under the full moon 1,000 times, you know what I'm saying? Like, no amount of that. I got to a certain point, much like that narrative I described to you, like with the record skipping. I got to a certain point of spiritual growth, but I realized I still felt like shit on the inside. And I tell people all the time, because I think it's hilarious now. I literally hated myself. Like, people talk about, you got trauma, you got things you're going through. Like, dude, when I say I literally hated myself in real life, I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, I hated how I looked, how I talked, my existence, my past, just why am I here? I felt that deep-seated hatred about myself. And no matter what I did outside of a therapeutic sense, I did grow in some areas. I was able to identify bad behaviors here and there. You know what I'm saying? But it's almost like I cleaned out my entire house, got to the basement of my house, and realized that there's a goddamn trap door. And that's literally what it is that we were doing. So it's like having a whole hoarded house, cleaning all of this stuff out and realizing like, nope, none of that stuff was the problem. All of that stuff was the byproduct of this problem. Yes, there's a trap door. There's another house back there. And that's the one that you have to clean. And it's like, what? You know? But those are things that you want to have someone who can be a guiding light for you to help you through, you know? Like, and I say from personal experience, having been on the other side of the couch before, that is not something that any person can or would ever want to navigate solo dolo, you know? So that's why I say, dude, therapy is the cheat code. It's like, have someone come help you sort through that stuff so they can be like, okay, I already got boxes, put this in this box, this in this box, and so on and so forth. And I feel like that is the greatest gift that you can ever give to yourself. I know it's the greatest gift I've ever given to myself, you know? And a gift that keeps on giving, because that's something that I get to give to people every day until this particular incarnation for me is over. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like offer yourself that opportunity to be able to know what it's like to exist on the light side of the sword. I don't know why these readings are going like this. Y'all, I'm gonna make a video about that one day when I talk about this YouTube stuff. The pressure of this algorithm stuff is just way too much. But and the fact that I feel bad for like sharing a whole bunch of stuff with you guys, you know, even though it's like hella beneficial, but we'll get to that on another day. But the thing that I can say for sure, dude, knowing what it's like to live on the dark side of the sword, the day that I was able to see the light side of the sword, oh my God. It was literally like, I remember walking out of my therapist's office and looking at the sky and feeling like I saw the sunshine for the first time in my entire life. It's almost as if every day of my life, I was seeing the entire world in like a haze of gray. You know, no matter how bright the sunshine, I just never saw it like that. And it's almost like that day I walked outside and was like, holy shit, like this is life. Like, this is it. Like, I actually can feel good and happy and fulfilled and not beat myself up in my head. You know what I'm saying? And I feel every human being deserves that. And most importantly, I feel that you guys deserve that, you know? So I'm going to pull this oracle for you guys and let you guys go, because I know y'all got to go do great Taurus things and the sort, and I got to go do your extended and things and whatnot or whatever. If this card ever falls out, you know what I'm saying? Whoop, there it is. Right on time. Look at that. Listen to the song. Okay, I'm going to stop. Quiet your mind, beloved one, and listen to our gentle reassurance that everything has been taken care of. Stay in a quiet place. Stay in a quiet and receptive state without worrying about the exact nature of your desire's manifestation. A quiet mind and body hears us quickly and clearly. This is our request to you. Listen. This feels very much like high priestess energy to me, because truth be told, if your mind is running, dude, I might have to link that. I literally might have to link that. I'm gonna write that down. To that Osho question, because that's literally it. Why is the mind running like crazy when the heart wants to say something? And it explains this of how it is that your mind, if we were to put this in the context of like, you know, angels and devils, you know, your mind would proverbially be the devil, and the devil does not want spirit, your heart, to speak, because it knows it's the truth, because the mind wants to believe that it's in control. Like, I run this is me, like I am God. You know what I'm saying? That's what our brains do. So if the mind is constantly running, keeping you anxious, keeping you thinking, you can't ever hear that still small voice within. You know what I'm saying? And that's the real battle that we're waging in life, you know, because once you overcome the mind, you overcome the world, and you are in Empress mode in dominion over everything. You know what I'm saying? But anywho, that's been your reading, my wonderful Taurians. I'm going over to my network, Patreon, and Vimeo, and YouTube members, all of the places that I am. I do all the things. I'm at all the places to do you guys extended. And we're going to look at this energy play out week by week. So if you're about that life, follow me on over there. But if not, I still love your freaking face. And I will see you guys sooner than later, my friends. Love your face, Taurus. Do the thing. Go to therapy. I'm just saying, love you.